Hello, my friends. How are you? It's me, Lucy, from Through Lucy's Lens, taking myself out of my comfort zone to do a Q&A video for you. Already, I've tried for hours to film this video. I was going to put some makeup on. I was going to get a nice background. I was going to do all this stuff. And I thought, you know what? No, because that's not who I am. I haven't got a fancy background. It's a Saturday evening. I don't really want to put makeup on. I'm going to do this video like we're sat in the garden, sharing a cup of coffee round at my house. That's just the way it's going to be. So welcome. Thank you to all of you that put your questions in the comments box. And I also got some questions coming through Instagram as well, which was fantastic. So I'm going to do my best. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to start with the history questions first, because that's why the majority of you are here. We are essentially, apparently, a social history channel. That's our niche, according to the great internet gods. And then I'm going to go on to some more of the personal stuff afterwards, because there was probably more questions about me. And I thought, should I answer them? Because, yeah, why not? You know, people have taken the time out of their day to ask. So, shall we get started? So the first question I'm going to tackle, and I think this is a really important one because this kind of overrides everything that I'm about to talk about. And somebody has asked, what does it take educationally to be a social historian? Well, you are a social historian if you like social history. I think all of us have got the ability to explore about the past, be interested in how the people before us lived. As a discipline, it was quite fashionable. Social history as a discipline came into fashion really in about the 1960s. It hadn't really been done before, and there was more of an emphasis within academics to look at the lives, how were people living, rather than looking at politics and dates and wars. It had a resurgence, and unfortunately it's quite difficult again now to get that official qualification in social history. I've had a quick look online. There are a couple, but not as many as when I was lucky enough to do mine. So I studied, I've got a degree in social history from the University of Hull. So I spent 4 very happy years of my life up in Hull. I actually chose the University of Hull due to the connection with William Wilberforce. And also at the time there was quite a, should we say, socialist leaning towards the way history was taught in Hull at that time. So I went to university and did that social history degree. When I look back at that degree, what did I learn? Well, what it teaches you is analytical thinking, being able to look at a piece of evidence and thinking, is this propaganda? So to give an example of what I mean by that, let's look at the penny dreadfuls in Victorian England. So the penny dreadfuls were a mass newspaper spread amongst the masses. Most people could afford it, and it would be telling the news, you know, how people wanted to read it, but it was sensationalist. So, for example, if we look at the penny dreadfuls with the Jack the Ripper murders, often what they're saying about the women who were murdered is that they were wicked, they were prostitutes, they were bad women, they were fallen women, not really concentrated. So it was sensationalism. So you look at your source and you think, is this reliable? Can I make a reliable decision based on this source? Is it propaganda? Who is writing the article? Do they have a particular message that they want people to read? Do I need to take that into consideration? So that's the kind of skills you learn at university. In regards to the subject itself, it was actually quite dry. I did a lot of work about 4-course crop rotation, for example. Whatever floats your boat. So I think the actual content of the degree, I found actually, I'm going to be honest with you, I actually found it quite boring. But what it allowed me to do was pick up those analytical skills, those historian skills that you need to move forward. And the interest in the medium of social history never ended with me. I've always been interested in how people live, what people do from as long as I can remember. So it just really gave me the skills to move forward and do my own research. But anybody can do their own research. Just be aware when you're looking, always think, where is this source from? Is it reliable? Can I trust this? Would I stand up in a court of law and say, this is what I say happened? If you can't, throw caution, you've got to be cautious. Have I explained that? I find these question and answer videos really difficult. I watch other YouTubers doing it and it's so cool, and they're sat in their garden and it's all great, and I'm here like, ooh. But anyway, so yeah, anyone could be a social historian. Just be interested in it, be curious, know where to look. If you're looking at family history, for example, there's lots of great resources online that can help you do that. Ancestry, Find My Past, My Heritage. There are loads of them. And of course, a lot of them are paid, right? Which, do I think that public resources should be free? Probably. But if you go to your local library, and I've always stood up for the libraries, often these genealogy sites are free to access in your public library. Or share a subscription with a friend. If there's a couple of you wanting to work on the family history, say, right then, we're going to all plug together for 1 month. I'll never get a sponsorship off these people now. Just get the free month. I pay. By the way, I'm going to say I pay for, I think I pay over £100 a month on all my subscriptions. Absolutely worth it if you're using them all the time. Gosh, never going to get any kind of sponsorship now, am I? But they are brilliant. They are really, really good. And there is one in particular, Find My Past, that I really love because that has the access as part of your subscription to the newspapers. And newspapers are a fantastic resource for any historian, really, particularly history from kind of the 1800s onwards, where you have access to the printed press. Oh gosh, I'm digging myself a hole. I better get myself out of it. Anyway, let's move on to the next question, shall we? Who is your... Let me read the question. See properly. I've written them down in the back of a colouring book, by the way. No expense spared on Through Lucy's Lens. Can't even turn the page. Who are your history idols? Right, I thought long and hard about this, and you might be expecting me to say a person in a history book. My history idols are your ancestors, my ancestors, our ancestors, particularly women who lived in difficult circumstances, who kept the families together, who went to work, who stoked the fires, who scrubbed the steps, who gave birth to multiple children, who showed up. They're my idols, I think. And that brings me to something that I'm going to show you that I found. Mum's been sorting out her house, and of course when you're still lucky enough to have your parents, and I've got one parent, my mum. We lost our dad 20 years ago this year, actually. See, you're getting all the tea. We've been clearing out, and the first article that I ever had published in the history sphere was in Carl Chin. Now, if anybody's a Brummie, you're going to know about Carl Chin. He's actually one of my history heroes. He had a magazine called Brummagem. Anyway, I loved it. My nan used to get it. And when I used to go around to my nan's, I used to read it. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to write in an article, see if it gets published. And it did. And we found the exact one, right? My first ever article from October 2002, issue 19. And I'm going to read it to you. And it will show you how I've always felt and how I still felt about these women, these history heroes. When pensioners say you don't know you're born, some of us may roll our eyes and smile. I probably fell into that category before speaking to my nan Audrey Stevens, née Richardson, about her childhood in the back-to-back courts of Birmingham. My nan was the third of 8 children and moved to number 2 back of 84 Nelson Street, Ladywood during 1938. She was 3 years old at the time, and she remained there until she was 13 when the family was rehoused to Yardley Wood during the slum clearances. Even in 1938, the house was near on 100 years old, and in bad weather the wind rattled the house and the rain poured through the roof. The house consisted of 3 small rooms. The living room with a stone sink in the corner and a black lead range was the heart of the house, and the only space for the majority of the day-to-day tasks to take place. It was lit by a single gas mantle. The family would sit on planks rested on 4 chairs around a scrub-top table. Upstairs on the 2nd floor was my great-grandparents' bedroom, where the 2 youngest Richardsons would also sleep top and tail in their cot.
Up another steep staircase was the attic, where Nan and her brothers and sisters slept. There was no light in this room, and there was a constant risk of fire from the candle on the small pull sash window ledge, as they once found out when the nets caught fire. Although the house was damp and the smell of gas lingered in the air, it was home, and Nan always remembers the house was kept spotless and there was always plenty of clean bedding, towels and hearty food. Outside there were 2 brewhouses and 3 privies, which were shared by no less than 47 people. In the house next door alone there were 14 children. Nan remembers that usually one or more of the privies was out of order, and the manhole cover in the yard would overflow and the women would come out and try and poke the sewage back down. Despite writing to the council on many occasions, no improvements were ever made. Washing was done on a rota basis in the brewhouse once a week. The slack fire boiler was lit and all of the families in my nan's court would do the washing. That washing would have to be done rain or shine. If it rained, it was tough, and room would be made around the range in the front room to dry out the wet washing in the house. My great-nan, Annie Richardson, would often take on other families' washing on for 6p or more to help out. There was a great sense of community in the court, and despite petty rows over the brewhouse and the privy, the women pulled together and made the most of what they had. During the war, all 6 families would crowd into the newly erected concrete air raid shelter, and the women would take it in turns to fire watch in the yard, with only a bucket of sand for protection. Nan said it felt as if she spent the majority of her childhood in that shelter, and remembers the eldest kids trying to sleep propped up against the wall. My great-nan was at the heart of court life, because she'd help out with midwifery and the laying out of the deceased. An idea that people would probably cower at from today. But then it was the reality of day-to-day life. My nan remembers the children in her court were never neglected and would always have someone to call in and look in on them or provide them with a hot meal. The other women in the court would always return the favour. Cots, prams and meals were shared in hard times, and Nan said you never knew who you might have to cater for one day to the next. And my great-nan was a master at making huge stews on the range with that in mind. Times were hard, harder than I can imagine, but there was a sense of community and sharing that could never be reproduced today, which made the life in the back-to-backs richer than any amount of money could provide. And that was written by Lucy, who was then Lucy Evans, aged 21.
Moving on to the next question. Really interesting. What were weddings like for the poor in the 1600s? Well, I'd like to start by saying I think they were jolly lovely because they were far more understated than they are now. The poor were quite lucky. If you were rich, you came with a dowry or you came with property and your parents might be expecting you to marry somebody you don't love. The poor had more power about who they could marry because they didn't have much to pass on. So you were far more likely to marry somebody that you loved in your village or your town in the 1600s as a poor person than if you were somebody from the higher echelons. Lots of people got married in a church, and the call out for the wedding would take place in the church door. So the priest, the vicar, as the couple entered, would call out any reason why this couple can't get married. And that's where the bans that here in the United Kingdom we read at church for 3 consecutive weeks before a wedding started. Most couples would get married in church. Now, records can be difficult to find because it was the responsibility of the church to register the marriage within the parish, which often didn't happen. So you might really struggle to find any wedding records from the 1600s unless your family were doing quite well for themselves. Have the ceremony and then it'd be a bit of a party, maybe on common ground, maybe in a local barn. People would provide homemade drinks, beers, wines, food, celebratory. Clothes-wise, there was no wedding dress per se. You would just wear whatever you had that was smart, which I think is really nice. Not having to worry about all the kind of, women often got married with their hair down to show that they were virginal. However, we know that many women were not virgins when they got married in the 1600s, and many women married because they were pregnant. Many women married after they'd had a baby. So in some ways, some of these things that came in later were not such a big deal. But I think weddings in the 1600s sound lovely. We don't have weddings so often on a Sunday here, particularly in the United Kingdom now. But then if you couldn't afford to hire a church or to hire a priest, or you couldn't afford to have a day off work, or you couldn't afford to come out the field, you would get married on a Sunday as part of the usual service. So your whole village would be there seeing you got married. I think it sounds lovely. And I suspect highly that there were many people that lived together that probably weren't officially married at all. At the end of your wedding day, there may be a bedding ceremony, and that would be when the man and the woman were put to bed. Now, I always find this really interesting because one of the questions I always get asked, well, were they expected to consummate the marriage in front of an audience? If you were wealthy and there was money on the table and dowries on the table and properties on the table, yes, because they needed to make sure that that was a legally binding contract between two people. The poorer echelons, I don't think so much. I think they'd have probably been enjoying each other's company before the wedding day, and were probably put to bed in some kind of ceremony and then left to do whatever they wanted to. And anything like my own wedding day, I was just exhausted. Next question. Do you like historical movies? Are there any that represent real life, or do they rely on stereotypes? Now, I think historical movies are an excellent gateway into loving history. Because when I think about my own childhood, we loved, as in me and my mum, we used to love watching the Henry VIII movies from the 1970s. Now, I can't watch them anymore because they're so inaccurate, particularly when we look at how Anne Boleyn and Catherine Howard are portrayed in those films. I find them quite difficult to watch, but as a child, it opened this world to me of this time in the past, and I wanted to know more. So in regards to historic movies, I think they're brilliant. I think if you watch it in the manner of entertainment, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, is there? It's the same as maybe watching a sci-fi movie or whatever it is. It's just important, really. It's going back to what I said about the learning to be a historian. It's, can we believe this? Is it correct? Do we have any evidence to say that is correct? But as entertainment and for costume and beauty and just mental health space, I think they're marvellous. Do they rely on stereotypes? Now, I think we're getting better. I think historical films are getting better. But then I think sometimes they're also going the other way now. So rather than applying stereotypes, they're applying something that's definitely not ever going to be taken place for entertainment. Films where I think you're getting a really good idea. I mean, I'm going to bring up Angela's Ashes. I've brought it up before. Frank McCall wrote Angela's Ashes about his childhood growing up in a tenement in Ireland. That movie is a masterpiece, I think. It's based on a biography, so we can think, okay, we've got evidence. It's a film set. But I think that is acted beautifully. It's really depressing, if that's your thing. But there are some out there. And then also the Elizabeth movies. Oh, they're just so beautiful. So beautiful. And I'm not saying I wasn't interested in Elizabeth I. She wasn't my favourite monarch. But after I watched those movies, that made me want to know more about her, the facts. So yeah, they're a good break. They're a good gateway, and I enjoy them. And that really, believe it or not, kind of concludes the questions where I was asked about history per se, but I'm going to add in another one. I'm going to make the history. So somebody asked, is that a Bedlington Terrier? My dog, you know Rupert, those of you that watched the channel before, yes, he is. And there's a history. There's a history to the Bedlington Terrier. So I'm going to tell you. And the history of the Bedlington Terrier was part of the reason that I wanted one. So Bedlington Terrier didn't really come into public knowledge until about 1835. So as dog breeds go, they're quite close. Initially, they were known as the Rothbury Terrier. There was a Lord Rothbury that had one or one similar. But actually, initially, the Bedlington Terrier was a gypsy dog. Now, I'm using the word gypsy because that is the word that was used at the time. And they were dogs that were used by people who lived on the land to poach. Because trust me, if he sees a squirrel, he's gone. Did I say squirrel? I said squirrel. He's here. He's always here. So they were living with poachers on the land in Bedlington, in around Bedlington, Rothbury, which is in the northeast of England. Nearest big city for those of you overseas, Newcastle upon Tyne. So they were living on the land, they were poaching. Many were attacked, and I hate to say killed, by badgers. They're very feisty. They'll go for anything that moves. And they were picked up by landowners who thought, oh, gosh, these are doing a very good job at getting rid of the vermin. I'll have a bit of that. So they started to live on land with the gentry. And then as time went by, because of their tenacity, they became a miner's dog. So if you think of the northeast of England, big mining community, and the Bedlington Terrier would go down the mines with the miners to control the rats and the vermin in the mines. And that, to me, with the fascination in the things that I'm fascinated in, was the dog for me. I wanted a dog that had always worked beside people, that has had a job as a companion. And I tell you what, he might look like a little lamb, but he is the best. Roops. Yeah. He's not going to come, he's too stubborn. Best thing that's ever happened to me. Companion, he's amazing. He really is. So I can see why people had them with them at all times, because he's brilliant. Guard dog, no. But if a squirrel crosses our path, it's game over. Thankfully, he's just in a squirrel. Anyway, next question. If I had access to a time machine, which period would I like to live in? Well, this is a difficult one, because I think how we live now, a lot of things aside, we're not going to go into this. We're into people, not politics, aren't we? Probably just stay right where I am. And I'll tell you why. Because we've got it good. Because I spend a lot of time with my nose in the past. And myself, the class of person I am, I wouldn't cope with the life that I would have been expected to lead even 100 years ago. Would I have coped with the smell? Would I have coped with the cramped conditions? Would I have coped with, I don't know. So in regards to a time machine, I'd be happy to jump in as long as I could come back. I'd love to go back to Tudor England and experience that natural way of life. I'd love to go walk through the Industrial Revolution and see the fires of hell, to see the people cramped in, to experience those smells and that environment that I study all the time. So I'm good here. I'd go anywhere, really. That's a rubbish answer. Sorry, I'm not a politician, by the way. All right, will I do more videos where I'm delving into the lives of individuals? Those of you that have been here for a while might have watched Bad Women about Amy Gill. I'm never going to forget that woman. Absolutely, but I'm going to tell you why they are few and far between. And it kind of connects into my next question and my next question. What do you do for a living, and where is the channel going? So I work full time. I don't know how people do this full time. I know there are people that do it. I know there's people that make a great living from it. Maybe because I'm cautious, or maybe because I'm old school, I can't actually imagine a time when I do this. I'd love to, but I just can't understand how people make a living from it, okay? I'm just going to be completely blunt about that. So I work full time. So 37 hours of my week are spent doing my job. Now, I can't go into too much detail about what my job actually is for various reasons, but I'm a caseworker. So I spend my day looking at really intricate law casework and making decisions. That's what I do. So that's what my brain's doing all day long. Really works on those historian skills. I've never been happier in a job than I am at the moment where I am. So that's what I do for the day jobs. That's 37 hours a week. Then I finish work, have to walk old bugger lugs over there, and then cook dinner and relax and all the rest of it. So I've been struggling for time in regards to this deep dive research that I need to do. Once my probation in this job is over and I'm able to take holiday, then I'll be able to get more into spending more time with my nose in those archives. So they're absolutely coming. You've just got to bear with me because I would never, ever just Google something and throw a video together, stick it on YouTube just to say, tick box, I've done it. Never. That's not going to happen from me because I care greatly about what I do and I care about the people that I'm talking about. Hopefully you've noticed I care greatly about being impartial, not offending people, being fair. That all takes time. So you're never going to get videos from me that are thrown together in an afternoon using, I hate to use the term AI, but you know, I know there's a lot of channels out there now that people are just voiceovering with AI about history. That's the modern world we live in and cool, right? But it's not going to happen from me. So it's just about patience, really. History is a slow machine. Anyone that's written a book will tell you it takes years. Gosh, wouldn't that be nice to write a book one day? Maybe that's how I could afford to do it free time. So in regards to where the channel's going, well, it's not going anywhere. It's my passion. It's the favourite thing that I do. It's what I look forward to. I love reading the comments, talk a little bit about those in a minute. I love doing the research and I love having to do something outside of just working all the time. I've got a very busy mind. I am constantly on the go. I find relaxation very, very difficult. So it helps me because I've got something to do outside of, you know, I can't just sit on the sofa and watch telly. It's not in my DNA, unfortunately. Sometimes I wish it was. So the channel is going absolutely nowhere. Still looking to do 2 weekly uploads. I've got quite a few nice things in the can. And I've also got some lovely trips booked in. And that's the other thing. I'm not prepared to go somewhere for the sake of going somewhere, just so I can say, right, yeah, tick that place. I want to go places that I'm passionate about because that comes through with you. You know, I've been to some places where I've maybe not enjoyed it so much and it maybe comes through on my face. It might come through in the commentary. So I've got lots of things planned, lots of lovely visits, more people coming to me with their own houses and their own lifestyles and saying, could you come and film my house? Yes, please. So I've got a couple of those booked in as well, plus a trip to Wales. And also recently I've been to a very beautiful, tiny little Tudor house in Coventry. All coming, all right? So that moves me on really to the next thing about what similar channel creators do you enjoy watching? And you know what? This answer's probably really going to shock you. I don't. I always think that comparison is the thief of joy. I could watch fellow history YouTubers and I know because of my personality, I will be comparing, thinking, oh, they're full time and I'm not. How are they making all these subscribers? Blah, blah, blah. So I just don't. I do watch documentaries on YouTube. So I love Ruth Goodman. I love Lucy Worsley. I love History Extra, History Hit with the documentaries. Kate Lister. There's lots of historians that I enjoy watching on YouTube. But in regards to similar creators to me, I don't really, which is, maybe I should. Maybe it would improve me. I don't know. But I have got a little recommendation for you. There is a channel called In Between Days, Dawn and Dave. Now, when I started many moons ago, well, it's 3 years ago now on YouTube, I don't know if it was Dawn or I don't know if it was Dave. To this day, I don't know who does the comments, but they popped up and they were so kind to me. And they've got a lovely, relaxing channel. It's majoritively National Trust houses. They just have a little walk around. It's really organic. They're lovely people. So, you know, in support of them. Yeah, and if you want to give me some recommendations, please do. But I just always got that little devil on my shoulder that anybody else I watch, I'll be thinking straight away, they're better than me. So that's why I don't do it. So this question is the equivalent of asking a mother who her favourite child is. Because I can't answer this without sounding like a politician, and I'm sorry. So of all the places you visited, 3 favourites and why? That is so hard. I can tell you my favourite. And that was my visit to Sandy. And I'll tell you why that will always be special. I feel emotional thinking about it. The people that own that property reached out to me and trusted me to go in there and do what I did. I met amazing people. I saw the most beautifully restored Victorian farm. I was able to experience living in it, find out all those amazing stories followed by all those amazing objects. The people on the island were amazing. I also got to go to Orkney, Kirkwall, the ferry, the Highlands of Scotland. It was a long trip, but my goodness, it was worth every penny that I spent. It really was. I'll never, ever forget that. And Davey, if you're watching, thank you. And yeah, you're amazing. Next is probably always going to be these living museums that I go to now. Beamish, Black Country Living Museum, Avon-Croft. There are so many that I still need to go to. Weald Downland is on my list for this year. Chiltern is on my list for this year. Eden Camp is on my list for this year. They're happening, but again, it's just time. Black Country Living Museum will always be one of my favourite places because I've been there since I was like 3 years old, and I'll try and find it and take a picture for the video. I found a certificate from when I was, I think, probably about 9. So when you go to the Black Country Living Museum, there is the canal, and you can go on a tour through the canal and you can have a go at legging, and that is the process of using your legs to push the narrow boat through a tunnel. So we did that and we got a certificate, and I've still got my certificate, so I'll find that. I've been seeing on their socials lately some little sneaky peekies of the inside of a narrowboat. I might need to reach out because I know some of you are absolutely desperate for narrowboat footage. I've not been able to find one. Obviously, I could book a narrowboat for a weekend, take it up and down the cut and film some herons and stuff, but it's not going to have that interior that you want to see, and that's what I want. So if anybody knows anyone with a heritage narrowboat that Lucy's can come down with, Rupert, here he is. Here he is. Him too can come down. We would love to, wouldn't we? Yeah, you won't kill anything, will you? No. And then number 3. I'm going to put my neck on the line and say it hasn't actually been on the channel yet. That's not bait, by the way. It was over a month ago now, I went to Abergavenny in Wales, and I visited Blenavon Iron Workers Village. It was great. It was fantastic. It was snowing, raining, sunny, and freezing cold all in one day. I had the place entirely to myself, not through request, just through visitor numbers, and it was absolutely incredible. So I'm going to be showing you that in a week. And then I've also recently been to Big Pit, the coal mining museum in Wales too, which was fab, and also that place in Coventry. Oh, they're all my favourite. They're all my favourite. I mean, the back-to-back houses in Birmingham, how have I not mentioned them? It's, in my opinion, one of the most important historical sites in the United Kingdom. I could go on, and what I am going to do is I'll sort my website out, because I often get comments saying, have you been ... Usually I have, but it's a case of going back into the past videos that I've done and finding them. And I appreciate nobody got time for that, or maybe you don't know how to do that, whatever it is. What I'm going to do is I'm going to, on my website, get a list of everywhere I've been, A to Z, so you can just click and say, oh yeah, she's been there, or she's been there, or she hasn't been there. And if I haven't, tell me to get my finger out and get gone. All right, I'm going to try and bring this to a close now. You'll have to let me know in the comments if you're still here, because if you are, you need a certificate to know about my legging certificate and listening to Lucy for half an hour certificate. Couple more questions that I'm just going to cover, and I'm going to not run through them because they're not excellent questions, but just because everybody's got pushed for time these days and I'm just rattling on. So what do I like doing in my spare time? Well, at the moment, I'm very much into my garden. A little project that I'm doing is trying to grow a medieval herb garden, medieval vegetable garden. So of course we haven't got any potatoes, but we've got things like purple carrots, borage, soapwort, all kinds of things. And I'm looking over there, like you can see it, you can't. Raised beds with turnips and, you know, trying to kind of be a little bit more self-sufficient. So I've got really into that. And I do watch a lot of gardening, actually, on YouTube. There's a channel called Grow Veg that I love, just because I think his name's Ben. He's just so clear and concise. And for somebody like me that doesn't know much about gardening, it's been an absolute godsend. I've built a raised bed and everything from that person's videos. So I'll give you a few little snaps of the garden as I'm chatting. So I really, really enjoy gardening. I enjoy I'll be honest with you, and it's probably going to make me sound really boring. I really enjoy just a simple life. I like to be on my own, which again, I like doing quiet things, crafts, gardening, walking Rupert, being with my family. I've just got quite a simple life, really. That's what I enjoy. I'm not saying I'm not social, but I'm not really into like big social gatherings or anything like that. I find them quite overwhelming. So I'm just very happy pottering along, just being myself, really. Going to the National Trust for a scone. All right, when I visit a place again just to film, and I think what this person means is if I've been there before, so let's, for example, talk about Snows Hill Manor, been there many times before, and then I went to make a video for the channel. Do I see it differently? I'll be honest with you, one of my biggest bugbears with the whole doing the YouTube thing is I possibly am concentrating too much on what you're going to see and not looking at what I see. Okay, if that makes sense. So on a repeat visit, that's actually quite nice because I've been there before, I've seen it all before, I've smelt it all before, I know what I want you to see. If I go somewhere for the first time and I'm also filming for you, I often come away feeling disappointed that I haven't maybe got out of the visit what I wanted to. And a really good example of that is Beamish. I made the films about their 1950s area, which was exemplary, by the way. If you haven't seen them, please do. But I didn't have time to go to the Victorian part. I didn't have time to go to the miners' village, but it's also 200 odd miles away. So it was a real rush. So I felt very disappointed. So I need to go back. But I think if I go back, I'm going to go back and do a day for me where I can just see, feel, experience, and then do a day for you because I think that adds to the experience. If I've been before, it's easier to film. I think that's what I'm trying to say. Have I ever been to Australia? I wish. No, I haven't. The furthest I have ever travelled is Bali, mate. There was a lot of Australians in Bali, even though I know it's Indonesia. I went to Bali for my honeymoon. It was nice. I used to travel a lot in my youth. I've been all over Southeast Asia. My favourite is Japan. If someone offered me a ticket to Japan, I'd go tomorrow. I've been to lots of places in the United States. I've been to Canada. I've been very lucky. I just don't feel as confident as I used to travelling because I suddenly got scared of flying. Don't ask. I don't know what went on. COVID happened and then I became scared of flying. Who knows? But I'm getting back into it. And that leads me on to my next question. Are there any countries you'd like to go for the channel that you haven't been? I mean, where do we start? High up on my list is Scandinavia. And that is because the original living museums, that's where they originated from. So I'd like to go to those original museums in Sweden, Denmark, because they look incredible. Also, the Netherlands. There's some gorgeous places in the Netherlands. I'd also like to take you to Germany. In particular, there's some incredible places in Berlin that I'd love to show you. I mean, the sky's the limit, isn't it? But this is where I'm just going to be really, really honest with you, right? So I'm a sensible person. I could slap on a ton of flights onto a credit card and think to myself, oh, let's take the gamble if it's going to pay. And I have done that a couple of times, and I'm telling you, it didn't pay. So what I'm doing now is I'm saving for trips. And at the moment, I'm saving so I can go to Sweden to show you some of those. And I think I'll enjoy Sweden in the summer because it's not going to be as hot as it is here. So yeah, that again is why the content is not flooding out. And gosh, I am never going to be sat here and talking about money, and it's my choice to do this, you know. But I'm not also in a position where I'm just going to slap stuff on credit cards and hope for the best, because I'm too old for that now. 20 years ago, hell yeah, I'd have been doing that. But now I'm a sensible middle-aged lady that's not going to do that. Okay, penultimate question. Have you ever thought about narrating audiobooks because you've got a very relaxing voice? Can I tell you all a story? And if you're still here at the end for it, thank you. I'm a Brummie, I'm from Birmingham, and nationally, as in the United Kingdom, people hate our accent. It's apparently like the least popular accent in the country. People hate it. Birmingham, thickos. So when some of you from overseas started saying you liked my voice, I was like, hang on, is this some sort of sick joke? When's the joke going to land, you know? So actually, I've always disliked my voice, probably because that Birmingham accent can be negatively perceived within the United Kingdom, which says a lot about the British in a lot of ways. We like to judge one another. We're all the same. So I haven't, because I haven't liked my voice, but you've given me confidence. I wouldn't even know where to start. Some of you have said read bedtime stories. There is a channel, I think, isn't there? History for Sleep. But then you're battling with the YouTube algorithm then, because it's saying, well, your social history, but now you're doing narration and now we're not going to show it to me. Honestly, so much to learn, so much to do. But I haven't, but you know, that genuinely means a lot, because as somebody that used to dread having to publicly speak because of their accent, that means a lot. Question about the Titanic exhibition. Somebody's going in June and they're saying, in your opinion, do you think it's any good? Well, my opinion is, if you love the Titanic and you want to go to a Titanic exhibition, you just go and, you know, go and explore and see. I've been to the one in, of all places, Las Vegas, get it right. I've been to the one in Las Vegas, and actually I found it really moving. I don't know how they're doing it here in the United Kingdom, but essentially the one I went to in the States is you got a ticket and you didn't find out until the end of the tour whether or not you survived. And that was really poignant. There were some parts of the original vessel. There was lots of very moving things from the wreckage. I enjoyed it. It was good. You go along, have a good time, and do you. Oh, it's got a bit nippy now, so back under the washing line. One more question that I went in the house. I thought, my goodness, very important question that I forgot to answer. And it is, what is the best and worst thing about having a YouTube channel? Well, the best thing, without a doubt, is you. That's the best thing about having a YouTube channel, that you just can't believe it, that people watch your, I believe, what I do, quite amateurish creations. I've had to learn how to edit, and I do everything myself. And you're also kind and lovely and from all over the world, and that community, that's the best part about having a YouTube channel by a million miles. What's the worst part? Well, I guess that's about people too, but it's not you. Sometimes comments can be upsetting, and I appreciate that you have to get a thick skin for it. It's the world that we live in, but it's not the world I want to live in. So sometimes we have comments that are horrible, actually, either personal or whatever they are. and Sharon, hi Sharon, who does the moderation, and let's send her some love. She's had a really tough time lately and she's still been looking at the comments, which is really appreciated. So she kind of gets a lot of them before I get to see them, but of course I still get to see quite a lot of them because that's the nature of the beast. And I've spent far too much time being upset about what people have said, and it's stupid really. So that's the worst part, but the best part is 100% you sat wherever you are in New Zealand or Canada or Brazil or Argentina. It blows my mind. We're a multinational channel and it's incredible. So yeah, that's that one. Right, I'm now definitely going to go in. We're going to have a little walk down my garden because summer in the United Kingdom means only one thing. Summer, we're in May, means only one thing, that everybody communal living is in their garden, and it was getting a bit noisy up there. Am I looking to do any Iron Age or Stone Age sites? You know what, I'm not the right person for that content. I'd love to, but I don't know enough about it. It's not an area that I've ever had the privilege to study really, and I'm not sure I'd know where to start in regards to evidence for that period, because would I be able to look at a stone or whatever, stone, that sounds really basic, see how little I know. I would love to. Maybe it's something I can investigate, but not something that's in the pipeline right now. I mean, I'll be honest, even when I was on Sandy, there was a Neolithic structure and I wanted to feature in the video, but I didn't feel like I knew enough about it, because I'm quite passionate about not bringing you not lies, but you know, not being clear about something. But maybe it's something I could look into in the future, and if I go somewhere and it really speaks to me, and maybe I can see, because I'm very visual, maybe I can see clearly what I can say to you about it, then absolutely, no period is off limits. I'm a big fan of the Romans actually, but again, I don't know much about it. Shall we turn? You always ask. Guess who? Me and my shadow. You're often asking about my home, aren't you? Well, here we are. I don't own it, by the way. I'm just giving you far too much information today, aren't I? This is in fact, I'll flip it. Let's look. It's my Victorian house. 2 up, 2 down. Most houses in the United Kingdom look like that. And then these here are 17th century nayless cottages. But I live in this one that was built for the school that's opposite, but the school no longer exists. Anyhow, Rupert, we're going to say night-night. Are we going to go and edit this video so it's got any chance of being online tomorrow? I think we need to. Thank you. Thank you for listening to that. Gosh, if you got to the end, reward. I'll get you a certificate. Before I go, somebody did ask, how do I get a postcard? I'm old school. I thought it would be nice to send some of you postcards, so that's what I've been doing. All you have to do is comment on a video, and I'm just and it is totally random, choosing comments and saying, hey, would you like a postcard? Send me an email and I send you a postcard. Somebody did say, why are you sending postcards in envelopes? They've got a long journey, you know. And the last thing I would want is for a postcard to make it all the way to New Zealand and be all dog-eared and horrible. So it's just a way of protecting them, really. Probably I can understand it's a little bit counterproductive, but I'm sending something nice. I want it to arrive in a nice state. Anyway, we'll be back to usual in a couple of weeks' time. If you've watched this, thank you. You've run a marathon with me. I appreciate it. See you in the comments and see you next time. Bye-bye.